Okay, we are talking about the 5 steps to successful delegation.
Yes.
I don't know what the 5 steps are, or I'm sure I read them in your book, but I'm not I don't have them in front of me, so I'm excited to revisit them again. Is there
Good.
something specific that you want to make sure we hit?
No, not
Are
really.
you promoting anything right now?
Yes. We have a new lead generator called the Magic Call Script, so I can talk about that briefly. Yeah.
Perfect. And we've got this episode slated for May 17th. So in a little while, it's going to be a little while, but still, that's a great
I'm recording all
evergreen.
my episodes for the first quarter this week. Like this is my last one. I've
That's
done a
a
lot.
lot.
Whew. Like I think Maureen does that too. It's worth it, but it's a grind.
Yeah, I think she does like 8 in a day, one day,
Oh, no,
or
that's
like
too
back to
much.
back to back. That sounds
Yeah.
honestly just horrible. That sounds
No.
horrible. Um, and then I'm going to ask you what your favorite business book is and why at the end. So you can
Ooh,
say
okay.
your book
Yes.
if you want.
Oh, that's a no. You can say that. I'll say your book, you say my book. It's all good.
There we go. Um,
Yeah, ready,
all
ready.
right, let's get started then. James edits my podcast. Did I tell you that?
Oh, awesome. That's
James,
great.
yeah, so
He's a good
yeah.
guy.
Yeah. So, hi James. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Therapy for Your Money. Today, we are talking efficiency, delegation, all things getting stuff off of your plate. So, I am with the one and only Uriah Guilford. Hey, Uriah, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing good. It's awesome to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to see you. You are a two-time guest now on the Therapy for Your Money podcast. So, welcome back.
I was in episode 4,
Super
and then
beginning.
I
Yeah.
know, and you're like 125 plus now. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We've hopefully improved a little bit since then, right? Episode 4, you're still just getting your sea legs,
I'll have to
figuring
go
out
back and
what you're
listen
gonna
to it.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to hope I'm a slightly better interviewer by this point, but well,
I
we'll
think you
let
and I both are at this point. Yeah, I would
that
say.
that sounds good. I hope so. So Uriah, you are the owner of a group practice. You are also the owner of Productive Therapist, which is a wonderful virtual assistant company. I only ever hear great things about it. But I also that you're also a self-proclaimed um, efficiency nerd, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I kind of like to joke. Like, I'm not sure if it's because I'm very ambitious or because I'm very lazy, but I love figuring out the best, easiest, most fun way to do something. And then, whenever possible, find somebody else to do the things that I don't like to do. So, I think the common problem amongst almost all business owners is busyness, stress, and overwhelm,
Yeah.
right? Because even if you do have a team, we tend to put too much onto our plate. We have too many emails, we have too many
Mm-hmm.
appointments, we have too many obligations and commitments, and it just leads to a point where burnout is an inevitability, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that happens on a particular day of the week. It kind of sneaks up on you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you can relate to this on
Yeah.
some level, and you wake up one day and you just don't want to do it, or you lose your motivation, you lose your sense of joy or excitement for what you're doing, and that is a sad day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That can be avoided, and or you can like come back from that moment of like, oh my gosh, what have I built? This is supposed to be a business that creates freedom for myself, and in fact I've created a very high stress job,
Mm-hmm.
which is not good if you're self-employed.
Some kind of big monster that's actually not helpful. And I think when you're a business owner, you're not talking about efficiency in the sense that like every day is just sunshine and rainbows, right? Like that, I don't know that that's possible. We were joking before we started recording. If you don't hate your business every once in a while or want to just burn it all to the ground, like are you really even a
Sure.
business owner? But still, like I know I've left plenty of meeting in my day with a bigger to-do list and not a shorter one, and thinking like, wait, how did that even happen? How did I end up here? So I'm looking forward to learning your 5 steps to successful delegation.
Fantastic. I want to start by giving you a 3 sentence mini manifesto. Is that okay?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay. So at Productive Therapist, we have the mission of helping therapists get more done so they can have more fun. That's very important. And I've come to realize that the best way to get more done is actually to have less to do.
Yeah,
Best way to
seriously.
get more done is to have less to do. You can understand how that works.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's math. And then the best way to have less to do, in my opinion, is to build a team and learn to delegate. It really
Mhm.
is the secret sauce to success. That's what I like to call it. So there's my mini manifesto. What do you think?
No, I love it. And I see your point as far as the math, right? Like you can get so much more done or get them done better when there's less stuff on your plate. And there's a lot of people who love just the doing, like the turning of the crank or the doing of the thing, but business owners are not usually those people.
That's true.
Yeah.
The minute ago, when you talked about leaving a meeting with more tasks than you
Yeah.
came into it with, I can so relate to that.
Yeah.
There was a point, I think it was last year, where I realized in reviewing our quarterly goals, and in reviewing my tasks that I just kept assigning everything to myself. I was like, okay, we should do this project, this new thing, and then I kept putting my name on it, right? Literally assigning
Yeah.
it to myself in our
Hmm.
task manager, and then I realized it can't all be. These can't all be. I can't own all these, right?
Yeah. Or they
So
won't happen also if they all are on
it's
your
true.
list, right?
It's true. So the new game became, how many of these things can I assign to somebody else? How few tasks can I retain? And then that feels like winning, more so. Like obviously I have less control in a sense, right? Like I'm
Hmm.
not doing the things, but more gets done, right?
Yeah.
And it gets done more quickly and efficiently. Yeah.
I feel like that's a piece of delegation that is hard for business owners also. Maybe we are slightly controlling, maybe. And so giving up control and saying like this is not going to be done exactly how I would do it, but I'm going to be okay with that. That piece can be hard.
Done is better than perfect
Oh my
is a
God.
good mantra.
Yes. I feel that way about everything except like the actual accounting work. When you're talking about a tax return, that is not true. Done is not better than perfect. You do want
That is
a
a good
really
point, Julie.
solid
I
tax return. But as far as like
yes,
everything else, like
right.
processes, marketing, like all the other pieces of the business, like just send the email. Send the email. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? That kind of thing. I am a big fan of done is better than perfect.
Absolutely. And I think 80% as good as you would do is good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's another good metric for you. Okay, so I did write a book last year, that I'm still very proud of, and it's called The Productive Practice. And in that book, I talk about the 5 steps to successful delegation. And none of these things, honestly, they're not groundbreaking, brand new information, but I did come up with this on my own. I'm sure it's like a collection of things that I've absorbed over time.
Sure. Over the years.
But this is like, something that I created for myself. And I just really looked at the way that I have learned to delegate over the years and realized that there were very definitive kind of order to the steps that made the most sense and led to the most success. Because if anybody listening to this has tried to delegate and felt like I just can't, or I tried that
It's
and
not
it didn't
working.
work, it's not because you can't do it. It's not because it's not a good idea. It's just because it actually is harder than it seems.
Hmm.
And it's easy to make some simple mistakes that actually make your life worse than better.
Like what? What are some of those mistakes?
Yes, well, we see this all the time with what we do with productive therapists, and I certainly won't name any names, but like you said, I would reframe it to say that as business owners, we as therapists are very caring and we really want things done well,
Hmm.
which can translate into micromanaging. So,
Okay.
if you think about the difference between deciding and delegating, right? So
Hmm.
I'm making a reference to Mike Michalowicz's book Clockwork, right?
Yes.
So deciding who's going to do the task is one part, but when you've successfully delegated, you've actually handed over the outcome to that person. So a lot of people think they're delegating when they're really just giving a piece of something to somebody on their team, and then they're micromanaging and like they're still very much involved, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then there's no relief because you're doing the same amount of work or maybe more, and then you're probably upset because you're micromanaging and it's not going well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. I've read Mike's book. I've actually been through his clockwork program,
Yes.
or the cohort program as well. And like that was a big piece where you think you're delegating, you're actually uh not often. You're just giving like specific tasks. You're doing all the thinking as the owner. You're making the decision, which is like the hard part of, or, you know, that's the part that takes a lot of brain power and energy. And so you're retaining all that, and it's just like the little itty bitty last mile piece of the task that you're giving away. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to list the 5 steps and then we can talk
Okay.
about each one and
Perfect.
kind of go whichever direction feels the most important. So the first step is to create a clear goal. And the second step is to create a written procedure or an SOP, if you will.
Mhm.
The third step is to do effective training. And then step number 4 is clear feedback. And step number 5 is good accountability. Those are the 5 steps to successful delegation.
So simple and yet so powerful. I think you need, if you're missing any one of them, it's hard to effectively delegate.
I think so. And I learned a lot about this a few years ago when I would delegate a task to somebody on my team. This is productive therapists. And I failed to give them an estimated amount of time to spend on it. And I failed
Mm,
to give them a deadline. And I
okay.
failed to communicate clearly what success looks like. So guess what I just did there? I set both of us up for inevitable failure, or at least a bumpy road.
Right. Because then I would imagine, this is just me extrapolating, it took way more time than you thought, right? You thought it was a 3 hour thing. They're 12 hours in and not even close to done. And you're frustrated. They're frustrated. No
So many
one,
challenges.
oh,
Yes.
yeah.
It's not good. It's
Yeah.
not good.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
let's
number
go over
one,
each one. Yeah.
yes, the goal. And I don't know if a lot of people do this. It's always made sense to me to literally at the top of the document or at the top of somewhere in the communication of the task or project is to write the goal. What is it that needs to get done and why? So I
Hmm.
think that's important on a number of levels, but it's helpful for me just to get clarity on like what do I really want from this task or project? What's important here? And then I also think it's helpful to communicate that to your team member or whoever you're delegating to so that they kind of get the whole picture instead of just having like part of the puzzle. So they can kind of
Yeah.
see the whole thing.
So is there some why also here as well?
Definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
So I'll use an example of so imagine we're talking to a therapist who needs to hire an intake coordinator. So we'll use that
Hmm.
example.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's easy to understand the need. We've got too many calls. I can't handle all the calls. I need some help managing the intake line and matching potential clients with new therapists or with a therapist. So I would write down in my document, I would say, here's the goal. I need to fully delegate my intake process to an intake coordinator because I want potential clients to get quicker responses to their inquiries. I also want to bring more clients into the practice and I want to free up my time by getting help with this role. That's a
Okay.
little bit wordy, but you get the
Yeah,
idea
but
there.
so clear. So clear.
Right.
Yeah.
And so once I hire that person, I can tell them this goal. Or even in the hiring process, I can say, this is a really important and crucial role, and this is why it's important to me and to the work that we do and to the larger community. So you can kind of tie in the purpose
Hmm.
that's kind of involved in that task.
What stuck out to me as you said that is the faster response, right? I think often that's not necessarily articulated. So maybe someone in the intake role is then taking a couple of days to get back to someone, not knowing, not realizing, oh, this is detrimental. And by the time I respond back in 3 days, this client has moved on. And so speeding up, like doing better than we were before, is really
Hmm.
critical at this. That's such an interesting point, that just a small little line that you added in there, but that makes the goal that much more concrete to me.
I think it helps the person you're delegating to understand what their role is in helping you as a leader or the
Mm-hmm.
business at large. And I think that feels good to know why you're doing your job. It sounds funny to say it, but it feels good to know why you're doing a job and that you and your contribution matter, right?
Sure. Like
So
how
that
it
serves a
fits
lot of
in the
purposes.
big picture of the business. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And we do that. We communicate that in our trainings with new intake coordinators that we hire at Productive Therapists. I have a whole little spiel on like why your role is so life changing and important, right? You're not just an admin person. You're not just a receptionist. Like you are somebody who's making a difference. So I like that.
I
Start with
love
the
that.
goal. Yes. And then of course, having a good goal or having a clearly written mission statement is fantastic, but it's all about the implementation and how what you do next. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why the second step is to create an SOP or a standard operating procedure. And like in the beginning, if you've never done this before, it really doesn't have to be complicated. You just kind of have to write down the various different steps that need to be taken to get to whatever success looks like. So in this situation, we're talking about documenting the steps that you take in the intake process and what that looks like.
Do you
And
have
every
a
business, yeah,
do you have a preferred method for that? Is it a Google Doc? Is it a Trainual? Like what is your preference or
what's a budget
recommendation?
actually?
Mm,
Yeah, you can use anything that you want. Of course, you can use a Google Doc, with a table of contents would be a nice way to do that. There are different software platforms out there for this kind of thing, and Trainual is one of them that I've heard is really good. We use something called Waybook now, which we really, really like. And I think their marketing says something like, the business playbook or your business,
okay.
something like that,
I've
right?
heard of them.
Um, and it's a home for all of your SOPs, and we use it for training and onboarding and all kinds of other things. I could talk your ear off about this tool because it's very cool. And you know what's cool about it too? I'll just tell you this one thing. Artificial intelligence is still very new and interesting.
Hmm.
But inside of this tool, you put all of your standard operating procedures and everything that you have this written documentation. Great. But that can become a lot. It's a lot of
Hmm.
information for employees or for anybody who's looking for it. So they built in some AI and they call it Waybook Ask. So you can go to
Ooh.
this little, text field and you can write in, how do I request time off? Or how do I sign up for the retirement benefit? Or, fill in the blank. And it actually pulls information from all your documentation and summarizes it in a beautiful way and gives
Neat.
the answer. It's great.
Oh wow. Okay.
It's so cool.
We're gonna have to link to that in the show notes because that is a really neat tool.
I need to do like a episode on my podcast or something about Waybook because I actually really like it a lot. Yes. So in this scenario, we're talking about hiring an intake coordinator, delegating that task or that role. So for this, the SOPs would be, I have a whole list, but like a call script, login details to the platforms that they would need to use, like what's your follow-up process, clinician specialties, list of community referrals. There's actually quite a lot of things to,
Sure.
to cover. But the goal here is that you want everything to be clearly documented so that if that person needs to go on vacation or they get sick or they leave your business, somebody else can come in and relatively quickly pick that up. And so you don't have to start back from, scratch to delegate, which would be overwhelming.
Yeah. And it's never perfect, right? If you drop someone into a brand new position, it's not perfect, but it's better than that. It also, um, having that training is so helpful so that you're not spending then another 8 hours with that person. Like that is just such
Hmm.
a big time drain, right?
It is. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the things we do for the practices that we work with now is we have the virtual assistant record videos of them doing the tasks and walking through each step so that the next person doesn't just have like a like a huge text document or like
Hmm.
some giant manual to read, but they can actually watch a video. We try to keep them short, under 10 minutes or so, to actually communicate that information. So like basically, if I had to replace my intake coordinator today, I have this little library of videos where I'd be able to say, okay, new person, here you go, watch these videos, and then let's
Okay.
talk. So
And are those looms or what do you use for that?
exactly, yeah,
A loom video. Okay.
right.
Okay.
So that's step two, the SOP. So first you start with the goal and then you move to the standard operating procedure. And I would say one last thing on that one, it can feel overwhelming to do that step for one section of your business or your entire business. But again, done is better than perfect. Getting something down is great. Something is better than nothing. So that's two. And then number three is training. And this is one where a lot of us make unnecessary mistakes, right? And the
Uh-oh.
mistake, can you guess what it is?
Not, I would say, I'm guessing not training enough or not spending enough time on training. Am I close? Warm?
Nail on the head. Yes, you hit
Okay.
the nail on the head. Absolutely. Because it seems like almost everybody, almost every leader underestimates what's necessary to fully delegate that task so that
Hmm.
that person can do it from start to finish repeatedly at a high level of, quality.
Accurately on their own.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
remember I remember hearing a stat of like it takes about this amount of time to train somebody on a task that takes this long. I wish I could quote the exact time frame, but suffice it to say it's a lot more than you think it is, right? So plan on doing more training than you think is necessary. That's what I would say.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
More than you think.
Yes, more than you
Okay.
think. And I can tell you honestly, I've been guilty of this many times because
Same.
I'm such like an, I don't know what to say. I guess I'm an independent person. I don't really want to hold anybody's hand and like spend 20 hours with them. I just don't. I would rather be like, here's the manual. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
But that's not good. That's not so good, right? You got to do it more hands on. And, fortunately, I've realized that I'm not a very good trainer. I'm like not a teacher by nature.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if
I would
that's
not have thought
surprising.
that of you. Yeah, that is surprising to me.
Yeah, you know how teachers they just have like this compulsion to like transmit information to other people and they just
Hmm.
find such joy in it and they could do it day in day out. That's not me.
No, you are a very patient person, though, it seems. That's
Thank
my
you.
perception of you,
I,
at
I
least.
am I am
Okay.
quite patient and I'm
Okay.
also good at pretending to be patient. So
Okay, fair.
but when I
Fair,
find I'm
fair.
having to pretend to be patient, I realize I need to outsource this thing that I'm doing.
Okay. I need to get
Yeah,
out
yeah,
of this
yeah, yeah.
specific task.
Right.
Okay.
So that's a little bit about training. There's a lot more that I could say about that. I will mention this. I think if you're like me, or if you don't really want to be the one training new people or the next person or whatever the situation is, then do your best to outsource that to somebody else, most likely within your company. Like for the productive therapist, when we hire a new virtual assistant, I do 1 hour of training. Our training takes about fifty hours actually.
Wow, that's a
And
lot.
so it is, yeah. And some of it's self-paced, but I do one of those hours. So that
Okay.
is super nice.
The other,
Yes.
so exactly 2% of the entire training, and then
Is that
you're
what it
done.
is?
Yeah.
That's yes, you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And my little plug there would be for our program that's called Therapy Intake Pro, which
Hmm.
is a training and support program for intake coordinators. So that if people want to purchase that program, it would allow you to train a new intake coordinator from start a lot faster because this gives them the foundation and a lot of the information that they need, and then you can kind of come in and do the rest yourself.
Yeah. I feel like that would be helpful for everyone, but especially if you're hiring an intake coordinator for the first time and you're like, I don't
Right.
really like, I've just been doing these things on automatic because I own the business.
Hmm.
I feel like that would be a good place to
Yeah.
start. Yeah.
We've had quite a few people use that program and then grow their intake team and use it
Hmm.
again, or hire a new person and
Sure.
then they have it for life, and it's great. We love it. So that's number three. So first start with a goal, then move on to the SOPs, and then do more training than you think.
Lots of
And
training.
then part of that training process, this kind of goes hand in hand with it, is feedback, right? And this comes natural. If you're training somebody, you're naturally going to give them feedback. But there are a couple potential traps in this area. One would be somebody who is conflict avoidant, like myself. I used to be more so, and doesn't ever want to give critical feedback. Like,
Mm,
actually, that's not right. You need to do it this way, or whatever the
sure. That's not our
specifics are.
process. This is what how you should do it. Yeah.
Right. Being too nice, essentially, and holding back on the feedback that that person needs to grow and develop and fulfill their role. So that's one potential place. And then another one is, giving too much feedback too often and like crushing the spirit of your team member.
Have
That's
you
not
done that before?
hard to do. I don't think so. That would not be my bent. Yeah. How about you?
I think I have done that before.
Yeah.
As a less experienced leader,
Hmm.
I definitely think I have crushed someone's, hopes and dreams at some point. And
That
if
sounds
you're
so harsh,
listening,
but
I'm very
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, I can be a very direct
I
person.
had good intentions. I had good
Yes, I had good
intentions.
intentions,
Yeah.
poor execution. Yeah, I think I have.
And then of course, I don't know if it goes without saying, but anybody who's taking on a new task or a new project or a new role, they really do need a lot of positive feedback. And that probably comes natural to most therapists, I would hope. But that's super critical because they need to get those signals and that sort of pat on the back that like, yeah, thanks for being here. I appreciate you and I love what you're doing and you're doing great. Those kind of things go a long way. All the way, honestly, from the start to the entire time that you employ somebody, you should build them up. Yes.
I agree. That's what I was going to say. This was a lesson that I learned somewhat recently, like in the last couple of years, that just because someone is there and they're doing a great job and you've told them, like, doesn't mean that you can stop telling them. You have to just keep, and every individual I feel like has a different cycle of how often they need to hear that, just
Hmm.
depending on like their own personality, right? So it's not about me and how often I want to say it. It's about what do they need to continue to feel excited, motivated, all of
Right.
that. And it took me a long time to figure that
Isn't that
out.
interesting?
Yeah.
Some people can survive on words of affirmation. So like if you give that to them on a regular basis, they're going to be just so happy
Yeah.
to
No
work to
matter
work there. That's
what
great.
else is going on,
Yeah.
they're good to
We
go.
had um we had a really fantastic team meeting this week with productive therapists, and one of the things that we did is I actually secretly messaged the entire team, excluding two of my two main leaders. And I said, can you gather feedback or can you give us feedback, positive feedback for your director? And they did that. And then those two team leaders collected it. And then in the meeting, we surprised the directors with that feedback. And they were both crying. They were both so
Oh,
happy.
that's
And like
so
it
lovely.
felt so good for the whole team that we were collectively appreciating our leaders. And so that was awesome.
What a great idea. I love that.
Yeah, and it can go every direct. It can go any direction too, from the leaders down to the whatever you want to call it, the employees, the other employees, or vice versa. So highly recommend that. Obviously, especially as you're delegating, but any day of the week that ends in Y is a good day to give
Is
positive
it good?
feedback.
So one thing we did recently or started recently that I want to share because it's been so popular with the team, we started doing mini awards on our Monday meeting. So the whole team
Yes.
meets just once a week, 30 minutes, updates what's going on. So we just pick something topical and give an award to a few people. And we try to make sure that we're, hitting
Hmm.
everyone at some point, but just so in January, we were talking about it was 1099 season. We were drowning in a sea of thousands of 1099s. And so we would do things like the team who got the most filed this week, or the client who had the most number to file, right? Like it's just it's a fun little thing. And it's just a way to celebrate, like, hey, you're doing a great job. Your client had 42 1099s to file. Like, that's a big deal. Go
That's
you.
so cool.
So
Yeah,
that was a fun thing that we just started doing this year, and it's been like so we just keep rotating topics and finding things to celebrate people for, but there's always something to celebrate.
that's
So
fantastic. I mean,
yeah,
who doesn't want to be acknowledged at work and
yeah,
valued and seen and also anytime you can add a little bit of like levity and fun to your
yes,
to your team, I think that's always gonna put gas in the tank
yeah. And
for sure.
these feel like non-competitive awards, right? So it's not about
Good. Yeah.
like, oh, I'm gonna crush you or anything like that. It's just about, these are the things that are happening. Hey, go you. Good job.
Do you give out silly awards too, just like that are funny?
Yes, yes, we do. I will
Good.
not, they will not come on the podcast, but we do give out silly awards. And once a year, we do awards for our entire team as well. And those
Yeah.
tend to be really, really funny. They're little inside jokes, basically, and
I
really
think I
funny.
want to do that. I want to take that idea. That's
Yeah.
that's good. I'm gonna borrow that.
And we it used to be little certificates. I think I have one laying around here somewhere. Yeah, there's a little certificate here. We call them greenies.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, that's great.
but we are doing little statuettes this year. And so with labels for each person. So there's a lot of
That's awesome.
fun ways to do things.
You're a great leader, Julie.
Oh, thank you. Back at you. I try. I put a lot of effort into it, right? And I know
Yeah,
obviously you do too. It is not it, as the business keeps growing. I mean, I'm deviating a little bit here, but I feel like I'm always trying to catch up and be the kind of leader the business needs of from me now. And that's not
definitely.
an easy thing to do. I think we're always trying to, as leaders, improve ourselves and be better and do better. And I will be the first to say I'm not perfect, but I'm trying. I'm trying. Every day I'm trying.
Yeah. Well, and I think you and I both care a lot about the culture and our
Hmm.
team and what it feels like to be a part of the team. So that goes a long way. I think people really notice that and they feel that in so many ways, and it helps people want to stay, stay there longer, which is
Yes.
really great for
Yes.
all things, including
Yes.
profitability and everything. Yeah,
It's very positive
it
when they are
is.
there and they're doing great and they want to stay. Absolutely.
Right, right.
So we
Okay.
got to four. I
Yes.
deviated. Let's come back.
Goal, SOP, training, feedback, and finally, the fifth step to successful delegation is accountability. Um, a lot of people just skip this, I think, and I did. I honestly did for a long time. I don't want to like. I don't want to be. I never really wanted to be a boss, to be perfectly honest with you, Julie. I sort of fell into this whole, team service-based business situation.
Oh, you're doing a great job, Uriah.
Thank
So
you. I've grown a lot. It's forced me to grow. But accountability, critical, right? And here's the thing: if you go back to step number one, if you have a clear goal to start with, you and the person you're delegating to know what success looks like. So
true. Yeah.
accountability is already there. So we were aiming for this goal. Did we hit it? Yes or no? Part of the way. So that's kind of built into it already. Because if you don't know what the goal is, like if you, what's that saying? If you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to get there or something like
You
that.
right, you probably won't get there. So can you give me an example in the intake coordinator example that we've been working on? Like
Right.
what could that look like? True accountability.
Yeah, we keep it pretty simple for the intake coordinator role. And obviously, like in that role, I have my intake coordinator. She tracks her time and she takes notes on her tasks every day. We have that sort of built-in accountability um, in terms of just like what's getting done, and because all of our employees are remote, so we
Hmm.
can't like see them working.
Right. And
And
peering over the cube and
yeah,
seeing
right,
what's going
right.
on. Okay.
And I like it better that way, but some people are very uncomfortable with that, and those people should hire somebody to come sit in their office, which is great.
Sure.
That's totally fine. So for us, it's just really the daily, weekly, and monthly reporting, because what you really want is the outcome. You don't just want to see the person working. You want to see the results, right? So I'll give a concrete example of this. So my intake coordinator every Friday, she sends me an email and my practice manager, and it's a templated email, and it just gives us the stats for the week. This many referrals, this many clients, this many are pending, and then sort of a status update on any kind of outstanding or ongoing projects, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that's built in, and I would call that accountability because it's reporting on
Sure.
what was done and how things went. So whatever metrics you can tie to that particular task or project, it's helpful. Like I try not to do that when it doesn't make sense to just like create work or busy work.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask
yeah.
you. Like, do you recommend that it be metric driven when possible? Because the numbers it can
Hmm.
lie, but they typically don't lie, right? Like the numbers are the numbers. What did you especially when it comes to number of calls, how many clients did you schedule? Like those
Hmm.
are numbers that you can get.
Right. I think so. I'm trying to think of examples as we're talking of something that wouldn't be tied to a
Hmm.
metric, but like, about SMART goals, you want to make them specific and measurable. And if it's, I guess if it's not measurable, I don't know, what are you doing?
What are
Unless
we
it's
doing?
just, what are you even doing? Unless it's just, I don't know. I can't even think of an example in my mind. Probably I'll think of one after we stop talking, but yeah, I think you know, everybody who has a job wants to know if they're doing a good job and wants to know if they're fulfilling what's expected of them.
Hmm.
So even just telling my intake coordinator, please send me an email every Friday with these three things. Then she checks the box and then she feels good about what she did. And then of course, in that situation, then we can have conversations and I can ask her, why didn't we get more clients this week? Well,
Right.
I have lots of sort of follow-up questions, which I guess are their own kind of accountability of like, what happened
Like
here? Or
separate,
tell me about this.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
separate accountabilities that come from that one Friday email. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that happens often, to be honest. Like I messaged my intake coordinator the other day and said, can you tell me, look at the last 3 months and tell me how many clients we turned down because of lack of availability. So she went and found that information and reported that. So, and I know I'm really looking forward to Maureen's book. And I don't know when it's coming out, but it's called, I believe, The Accountability Equation, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken.
I
So
believe
I'm
so.
super interested to
Yeah.
see what that's about because this is not my area of strength. So we do a pretty good job, but I know that there's probably even better frameworks to apply to this area. Yeah,
Yeah. That's going to be a great, I've seen the training that you put
right,
on
right.
that, which is top notch.
I
If
heard
you have
good
a
reports
chance, you
from people that
should
were there with you. Yeah,
attend. Yeah, it was a
yeah.
great event, but I think the book obviously makes all that information so much more accessible. Speaking of that, speaking of books, tell us where we can find Uriah, your book.
Yes. So the productive practice, how to grow your group practice, get more done and have more fun. You can find that at productivetherapist.com/book. And it's only $4.97. And I basically tried to pack as much genuinely valuable content into this book and sell it for the least amount of money that I could possibly.
Best deal you're going to get all
The
day.
best deal. No,
The
it really
best
is.
deal. It
It
really,
really
yeah.
is a
It's
fantastic deal.
really value
Yeah,
packed book.
definitely.
Um, but I do know you had a special offer for our listeners, um, which is the magic call script. I want to hear
Yes.
more. Like the name is so enticing. Tell me
Do you like it?
more.
I like
I
it
do
too.
love
I
the
like it.
name.
Yeah, so we just took the call script that we've been using for my practice and for literally hundreds of practices, and we kind of refined it and made it the best possible version that it could possibly be. And when I say call script, I just mean, the guideline for the intake coordinator
Hmm.
to kind of manage those intake calls successfully, and try to book more clients from the calls that are coming in. So we put that into an amazing downloadable PDF with some explanations about why each step is important and why it exists.
Okay.
So so it's a really great resource, totally free. And you can get that at productivetherapist.com/magic. And that will help your intake coordinator or you convert more callers to clients for your practice.
Thank you for that. Okay. I want to end with a question for you. What is
Yes.
your favorite business book and why?
So this is going to sound totally, what's the word? Is it pandering? I don't know. But I'm going to say this: Profit First for Therapists, honestly, fantastic book. And I'm not just saying this because
Thank
I'm talking to you.
you.
I will tell you this. So one of my therapists is starting a solo practice in about 2 months, and still remaining part of my business, which sounds complex. I don't need to explain that. In any case, he's starting his solo private practice, and I said one of the things you need to do is buy Profit First for Therapists. I literally told him that. He went and bought the book, and he started reading it, and he told me on several occasions, he said that book is so helpful. I'm only like halfway through it, but it's really great. So
You just
that's what I'm
made
going to
my
say.
day. Thank you. That's really
Yeah.
kind. That is very kind of you. Um, I know you read a lot of business books though. Is there something else that you really like have enjoyed recently? Oh, your eyes getting up. He's going to get a book.
So I have a couple books that I'm excited about reading. One of my favorite productivity experts is a guy named Ali Abdal.
Hmm.
He's a YouTuber, but he's got an interesting story. He was a doctor in London, and then he became a productivity guru, and he wrote this book that just came out. It's called Feel Good Productivity.
Okay.
Fantastic title. How to do more of what matters to you. I've learned so much from this person from just from his
Really?
free YouTube videos. And so this is a productivity book that is a little bit different than a lot of the other books that are out there. There's a review on here that says a much needed antidote to hustle culture. So that's what I'm excited to read.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I feel like you always have good life hacks in general. Um, that is always how I associate you. I remember you saying years ago, and I don't remember if it was on your podcast or just in a random conversation. We've met many times over the years at various events. I want to say that you structure your morning in a way that you watch your favorite YouTube video like after you do kind of some of the hardest things of your day.
Oh,
Is
right.
that
Right.
is that still the case? Do you still do that?
I'm always trying to gamify and hack certain things to make it easier and more fun. So that reference there is using enjoyable things to
Yes.
reward myself for focusing and working hard.
Like an atomic habit style, right? I want to say he talks about, James Clear talks about doing it in that way, like
Definitely.
associating something good with something that you don't want to do so that you can you do them together. But
It's a
that
good
has
one.
always stayed with me. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's a good way. I don't do it. I've always admired it. I don't do it, but
Ah,
that does sound really, really good
yeah.
though. Yeah,
Can I tell you one thing before we wrap up?
absolutely.
So I wrote something down the other day. It just kind of clicked in my brain. Um, I like clarified my personal mission statement, or I think that's what this would be. But what I wrote down is I love helping people make life and work more easy and more fun.
Mm,
And I realized that like if I'm showing my daughter how to use the password manager on her phone, or if I'm helping a practice owner like streamline their intake process, I just love showing those things to people and seeing the light go on and go like, oh my gosh, my life is gonna
yes.
change.
Like this is such an improvement over whatever I was
Yeah.
doing
And it doesn't even matter
before.
if it's business related or like, in a business context. I love all that. So even like recommending the best travel bag, or like I was talking to one of my leaders about the benefits of merino wool shirts for travel, all that kind of stuff. I'm a nerd about it.
You are also very efficient packer, is what I've learned. I've seen you go to an event with one backpack, boop, little backpack, impressive. I cannot. I don't travel like that, but I admire people who do
I will never have the most pairs of shoes at the event,
at the
like
event.
my
Yeah.
friend Whitney Owens, but I will be the lightest, have the lightest carry for sure.
There you go. On that
Yeah.
note, Uriah, thank you so much
Yes,
for joining me today. Thank you
absolutely.
for coming on the podcast.
For sure. Thanks for having me.